If it goes check, I'm always bluffing the river, and I think I want to bet all my ace-x for value, and I don't think I have to make it big. He has hands like ace-jack, obviously. Maybe I can have ace-9 in spades, that's good. So I think blocking works well. Yo, what is up, 6 Max Crushers, the Razor Edge community. Welcome back to another live play. As you can see, NL25, and also can see as well, new background, new office. I hope the sound is good. Not that much stuff in here, so the sound might be a little bit scuffed. Excuse me for that. Other than that, I hope you like it. I like it a lot. It's like very bright, sun is shining, so a good day to work. And today we are going to do something a little different. Before I started, or before I hit the record button, I asked my course owners from the Online Cash Apprentice corners, hey guys, what do you want to see? Topics to be covered, problem spots, things we struggle with. And they gave me a full list of topics that they would like to have covered in those live plays, in those videos. And the list is here. Let me see. Okay, I think you can see. So it starts easy with blind versus blind play, playing against cold callers out of position, also kind of easy. Defending versus 3-bets, a little bit of a broad topics, and then it gets a little bit more into the serious stuff, into blockers, unblockers, big blind check raises, you can see depolarized, polarized approaches, all that stuff. How to find the perfect bet sizing is always a huge question. 200 big blinds deep, and then it gets really interesting into like 3-bet pots, out of position, turn play when the nuts change. This is like super detailed question, but we will try in this video to cover them all, or at least say a little bit something to everything as the spots come by. If I miss any of these situations, they come up and I just miss them and I do not explain them, please ask in our Discord channel, or you can just tag me there, or ask in the comments down below. Both will be fine. Discord probably a little bit better because I'm more active there. Other than that, I think we have so much to cover that this will be a 2-part series, and B, yeah, let's not waste any time. Let's fire up some nice elevator music so that YouTube is not going to get at us. And then, yeah, NL25, fire up some tables, and let's just grind a bit. Alright. Can I say something without having spots to any of these? Probably not. Playing against cold callers out of position. Good rule of thumb is if you have cold callers in your game, that means people are not playing a 3-bet only approach. This mostly goes for the lower stakes environments, but also goes for some 200 no limit games as well. If people call a lot behind you when you open raise, it's smart to not open raise that much from early position. Just be a little bit more tight. I think 4-5 with so many people behind is kind of a shitty hand to call. If you have so many people behind, you want to size up a little bit. So from under the gun MP, you can just go 3x and fold hands like deuces, 5-4 suited and stuff like that, and naturally exploit them cold calling by just hiring the price. So this is kind of a throwback to 2009, where you were opening bigger in early position because your range is stronger, and you open a little bit wider in the late position with a smaller sizing. This is what people used to do in the early stages of poker. Sometimes 3-betting this 49, it's kind of in between. I don't think it's 50. I think it's a little bit less. So yeah. And then there are some 10-9. I'm just gonna go for it. I go small in these positions, and I think people are folding a little bit too much on these stakes. So I'm trying to just take any spot I can to steal the blinds and be a little bit out of line there, quote unquote out of line. Playing versus cold callers out of position, I think we will get some situations later on for sure. And then we can make some rules out of it. Ace 10, 50 big blind stack. We have short stacks here too, right? Play against shorter stacks. We have it, right? Yeah, we have it. Let me quickly 3-bet this Against min raise with a short stack behind, I think calling is okay. I wouldn't really do any cold calling in the small blind, but if it's like a special spot where maybe a fish is in the big blind and you're facing a min raise when you have a hand like that, then it's fine. Now we got cold called. 3-bet cold calling range I think is full of pairs and suited broadways. He calls as well. Our hand is pretty good to bet here. Needs protection. Wanna get called by worse. So I'm just gonna try to build a pot here. Obviously he can have 10s. He can also have 8s and 9s, which are never going to fold really. So I'm gonna keep betting. He also, if he's very loose, he can have like 10x hands, and there's just no way out here. And I think we should focus on getting money from pocket 8s, 9s, 10x hands, instead of trying to not lose our stack against a set here. And this will basically always the case. Alright, 10s should be mostly calling. Big blind was under the gun. And see, blind versus blind play, right? So blind versus blind need to defend a lot, especially when you are in position. And I think also more than GTO suggests. Because if you think you are the better player and you are better post-flop, playing the hand in position will be great for you because you realize so much equity. Check, check. I think I tried to get my 5-2 shot on. Checking that board is also a little bit suspicious. But yeah. I could bet, but I think it's a little bit too weak. I think Queen Jack, Queen 10 type of hands mostly bet the flop at some point. So yeah, so he tells me he wants to have some kind of air hand that he didn't c-bet the flop with. Okay, let's pause maybe for a second. This is a good topic. I'm going to fold, although I'm never allowed to fold this kind of hand, in theory. But the reason is we have blind versus blind play. Aha, easy number one. That's easy. Okay, so what should happen? Ace King 5, everyone will be okay. Ha, easy range bet, right? Small blind versus big blind. It's not that easy because if you are open raising like around 50% of your range from the small blind and the big blind defends like 60% of its range roughly, then ranges are super wide, and this is kind of the reason why you cannot do so much range betting, because yes, you have the nut advantage, but because you can have aces, ace king, kings and all that stuff, but you also have like a gazillion amount of trash in your range, right? That you have to do something with, right? And if you look at blind versus blind sims from solver outputs, it will always be kind of a wild mix. Almost always, right? Ace King 5 is basically as good as it gets for betting, and I wouldn't mind just range betting that in practice, but in theory it looks a little bit different. So there's lots of checking going on, and if you bet too many air hands, it will crush your EV. That means on Queen 10-5, if you c-bet your Ace 8 because you're like, yeah, this is a range bet spot, it will cost you EV, and this will be not good in terms of theoretical knowledge. But here's this thing. People don't know that. Obviously, they don't know that on NL25. They probably don't know that on NL50. They probably don't know that on NL200. Who knows? But the point I'm trying to make is it's complicated. Lots of checking involved, and you need to check like super air hands. And in order to know that, you have to be a very experienced player, or at least spend like lots of time in solvers. So when he checks that flop, I know that it's a thing in theory, but he probably just does it because he has some hand between pocket 8s, 9s, 10s, sometimes a king, sometimes a weak ace, that he doesn't want to play a big pot with. And this is where the thought process ends. So there's a difference between how people should play and how people are playing exactly in practice. So yeah, blind versus blind play is one of the, in single race pot, the most difficult things to look at. And this is why I fold the river, because I don't give him credit for checking a lot of air on Ace King 5, where he can just say, oh, range bet, right? So if he checks, he usually has like some kind of good hand, medium strength hands, I should say. Not always, obviously. Maybe I give people too little credit. Ace 9 should be the threshold here. Maybe Ace 8. Ace 7 is a little bit too loose. And great. It's just like as it's scripted. Do I get this to showdown against all the king, queen, king 10 type of hands? I think so. So yeah, not really that much worse calling. So I think I will give him the opportunity to bluff maybe. That worked out perfectly. Okay, next spot. Why do I check the flop on Jack Deuce 3, right? Here's the thing. For playing against cold callers out of position, especially in this case, this should be always like 100% 3-bet. So this is kind of what happens. People are calling too much in general. In position, they just call the suited hands. They just call the pocket pairs. They don't care about the 3-bet only approach. And this makes us developing some rules for playing against these callers for Cbetting. And the rule here is pretty easy. If you are a fan of Stefan Sontheimer, you know that. One, or like I should make it maybe A. Whenever the caller can flop 2 sets or more, and this is the case here, he can have deuces, he can have threes, probably never has jacks. We check full range. B, whenever the caller, and this is the counterpart, can flop 1 set or less, we range bet. And this is something you can just plug and play. If you look at solver outputs for these kind of situations, single raise pots out of position, you will get a crazy amount of checks on all the low card boards because it's so favorable or like very favorable for the calling range. And there's not much trash in those calling ranges as well, right? So they have a 3-betting range where some hands are in, and the calling range is usually designed heavily around small pocket pairs, small to medium pocket pairs, and some suited broadways, maybe even some offsuit broadways. And this well-defined range interacts very well with all these low card boards. So 10-7-5, Jack 3 deuce, but also goes for like King 5-3 rainbow, which looks like a range bet board. Same for Jack 3 deuce, looks also pretty dry. Why can we not just bet? Because, as I said already, 2 sets or more rule, and people are doing usually pretty well on these boards, and you don't want to bet your full range. You want to start with checks and then proceed pretty carefully if they start stabbing. However, if they are not stabbing, and this hand would be a perfect candidate to bluff on the flop with, you should start bluffing the turn a lot. So this was kind of why I debate betting the turn. But if he's not bluffing queen 10, then I don't need to turn my ace high into a bluff. That makes no sense if I get it to showdown. Why is queen 10 a good flop bluffing candidate? First of all, he has spades, so he blocks hands like queen jack, 10 jack, which are my strongest down calling hands. He also blocks pocket queens, which are my strongest down calling range hands. And he has spades. That means if I check call a hand like ace high clubs, ace high hearts, ace high diamonds on the flop, I always fold that on the turn, and he's not blocking any of that with spades. This is kind of a little bit of an advanced blocker theory thing, but this hand should be start bluffing at some point. The river is not exactly the best because I have ace highs and I'm not betting those all the time because I don't think I get called by worse that often, but I will give him the opportunity if he has a hand like that to bluff that in case I have something like king high or something. Okay, so this is the rule, and this goes for everything like king 5-4, ace 6 deuce rainbow or similar, 10-7-5, huge thing. And the other ones are king king deuce, king queen, king 10. 10 is kind of in the middle. I'm gonna go for king queen deuce to make it a little bit more easier. Ace queen 5, you know, right? Pretty easy. And this is a strategy which you can just plug and play. Out of position, single raise pots, check range when caller can flop 2 sets or more, and be a little bit careful when they start stabbing and raising and all that stuff with your over pairs and your top pairs. And on the other side, if they are not stabbing anything on the flop, can go a little bit more aggressive. Nice. 14 minutes in, already got some decent content out of this. Easy. That's the good weather. That's the sun that's out there that's helping me right now. Also, I would like to pay... like, I moved down to NL25 because I want to have some shorter stacks here as well. Because one question was how to defend against shorter stacks as well. And then maybe we get into ace-10 not always opening. This doesn't look like a good table to do it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. We're making a video, right? But yeah, fair enough too. And then you have a cold call here, which you usually don't have. And this is pretty good if you have hands like ace-10 more, king-jack more, instead of 4-5. Or pocket 3s here. Because he's calling like his pocket 4s now, his pocket 5s. Not folding them. Good spot to squeeze. Ace-10 does nothing even on a high roll of an 80. I think we never forward bluff this. I would forward bluff a hand like ace-queen, for example. Loosey-goosey. Loosey-goosey. Yeah, I think I should be allowed to check a little bit here. I'm not gonna do it. Okay, that's also important. I have to keep track of this. That I don't miss any spots. Overbluffed, underbluffed, shorter stacks, big blind check raises. How to find the perfect bet sizing is also something. Basically, we can do that at any point. There are some rules, heuristics I can give you for getting better at this. It's not that hard, actually. It's not that hard. It can be confusing sometimes. And if you don't know for sure and nobody tells you, then it gets really interesting. I could call the jack-8 suited here. I clicked a little bit too fast. There was a cold call too. So yeah, I could at least think about calling this hand. And if you know the player pool, have a little bit more sample, you can also steal much wider than I do. 3.2x, that's expensive. Folding the flop. Seems good. Now we get to how to play against limpers. I'm just gonna start betting. Bet my hand. Obviously, he can have some stronger aces than me. But if he starts limping, then he likely likes his call button. So I'm trying to give him that opportunity. 7-9 is a little bit loose. I would open 7-8 off, but I'm not gonna go like super crazy. Ace-10-7. Is he flatting pocket 10s there? Probably. Maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna start with a check, according to our rule. And if he steps that board, then I'm just going to check fold. If he doesn't, I'm pretty happy with that spot. And I would be aggressive on the turn. I would turn small pairs into a bluff now. He never has a flush, he never has a straight, he never has two pair, he never has sets because he caps himself. But I think my queen is obviously good enough to just try to get to showdown. Now we have 3 queens, which are certainly good enough for a bet. What's the worst hand I want to bet for value here? Probably some ace-x hands. So I think normal 75 sizing on the river looks good. And also, I would bluff everything on the river that I didn't bluff the turn with. Playing against short stacks, there we go. Against short stacks, it's always better to have a hand like this than a hand like 5-4 suited. Because most of the time, like in a single race pot, okay, let me play this hand. And then against fish, you can do obviously whatever you want. I'm never folding this. Check. Check. 6s are very good head. So, folding here, explaining how to play against short stacks and why big card hands are always better. In a single race pot, 100 big blinds deep, for example, button versus big blind, and you have some kind of medium to good top pair, you know, okay, this is probably worth 3 streets of value, maybe 2 streets of value, but never like my full stack. I shouldn't really look to go broke here when it gets check raise, overbet, yada yada yada. Then I should be a little bit more careful. So 1 pair is usually not enough in a single race pot for 100 big blinds to stack off, and it's obviously never enough for 200 big blinds in a single race pot, or even in a 3-bet pot, that 1 pair is enough to get all the money in the middle, right? You need a huge cooler situation for that. But when stacks are smaller, those pairs are perfectly fine to stack off with. because there's not that much money behind, right? So the less money there's behind, and this goes for like 40, 50 big blind stacks, the more I want to focus on having high cards in my 3-bet ranges instead of low cards. I don't want to 3-bet my 7-6 suited and then go for 3 streets, because on the turn I'm usually all in a 3-bet pot anyway, because there's not much money behind, right? So big cards, good top pairs, good 2 pairs are perfectly fine to stack off against smaller stacks, and it's not so much about making the super nuts with the suited hand. So suited aces, lower suited aces and stuff like that are way more important, and board coverage is way more important when stacks are deep, where you want to make like straights, you need flushes to get all the money in, you need top sets instead of bottom sets and all that stuff. So this is kind of the difference between small stacks and very, very big stacks.
If you're watching this because your win rate in cash games in 2026 still sucks, it's time to stop what everyone else is doing, which is grinding the solver endlessly, trying to memorize the strategies and put it into your game without actually knowing what you're doing. The EV and all the money comes from finding out what people in your games are actually doing wrong. We want to take advantage of their mistakes, and this is where your win rate skyrockets. In the Cash Game Champions tier, I just released a full video series, my personal exploit blueprint 2026. All you need to know about the player pool and how to find the perfect counter strategy. There's also a 10-day money back guarantee. It's off to just $99 per month. So if you don't like it, you can just give it back. Have a sneak peek, try to work with the content, and all you have to do to get started is just click here, and I see you in the channels. Super excited for this.
The smaller the stack, the less of a good hand you need to get it in. Basically, this is the rule. Ace-9 usually not, but these 2 players seem to be maybe recreationals. 5-4 suited with someone not full stacked in the big blind, I look for calling. Again, he has 50 big blinds. I'm not interested in 3-betting this hand and then playing a pot against him. So yeah, I would like to have hands like Ace Queen, King Queen, King Jack. You could go thinner for value with hands like King Jack off and stuff like that. So I'm gonna check it to showdown. If he checks 3 times, I'm just gonna bluff the river, make him fold 8s, 9s, 10-9, hopefully. Having a 5 and a 4 is not that great because I block hands that I want to fold out. So if he bets, if he plays his 4s and 5s like that, which I could see he does, my blockers would be pretty bad because I want him to fold these hands on the river, and blocking folding range when bluffing, not that great. Not that great. King 9. Ka-ching. 3-bet pots, our first. Don't know this guy. You could make an argument for flatting. Exploitatively, obviously. Could make an argument for half potting, but I think 1/3 works well. Now we have it. I think this is pretty close between... Do I have... yeah, I can bluff. In theory. So it's not like a full range bet, range check spot on the left, but for sure something I need to be very, very careful. Let's see. In MP. Fine, probably folding this under the gun for our sizing. If it goes check-check, I'm always bluffing the river, and I think I want to bet all my ace-x for value, and I don't think I have to make it big. He has hands like ace-jack, obviously. Maybe I can have ace-9 in spades, that's good. So I think blocking works well. This is a pretty good example, and I'm very happy that this goes to the river. So yeah, I'm kind of targeting a 10 here. He has a hand that should always go all in, I think. And he maybe thought about it. Or he thought about... Nah, he never thought about folding, right? He thought about jamming. Yeah, he should jam this. I think in practice. Okay, whatever. Good hand. Let me see. This is kind of this. Okay. flop is pretty, is kind of easy, right? We can bet a lot. We have queens, tens, we have pocket fives, we have queen 10. But so does he, right? He has a little bit of queens, he has a little bit of tens, he has pocket fives, he has ace queen, he has some ace king maybe. So it's kind of a board where both players have kind of strong hands, but also not that much of protection is needed. Although it looks kind of dynamic, there are lots of open enders and stuff. That's why I thought, okay, probably half pot should be a little bit better here, but I think in practice, range betting, this works pretty well. If there's a card on the turn that change our nut advantage or change like the amount of strong hands both players can have, so he has now a ton of flushes and I have some flushes too. And if we say on the flop we are a little bit ahead because we can have always pocket queens, we always have aces, kings that he cannot have, so we have a little bit of an advantage. That advantage is out of the window on the turn card because now he makes a lot of flushes that are the nuts basically, that we have them too, sure, but he now is not really puking into the bucket. It gets more extreme and the board is more favorable for us. For example, it's ace queen deuce, and we have like all the greatest hands, or ace king deuce, where we have a huge advantage, and then suddenly turn card flush, and then this is more of an extreme example. Here he has already some good hands on the flop already, but again that turn card always changed, and this means when both players can have like a huge amount of very nutted hands that are not that likely to be outdrawn by the river, then there's no big sizings anymore. Especially in 3-bet pots out of position. So I cannot go like 27 big blinds turn now with my king 9 and jam the river. This would be pretty huge punt, especially without a heart. And I want to bet a hand like ace queen for 3 streets here too, to let him call down his king queen, queen jack, ace 10 to keep his range wide. So I need to size down. This is what always happens in 3-bet pots out of position when those cards get to the turn that are changing the nuts a lot. So 1/3 it would be. My hand could fit into 1/3, but since I have spades, I block some hands, in theory, that he's folding on that turn, which is, for example, ace 9 of spades, some king x of spades that he floated with. Maybe I want him to have the king 9 of spades. So spades is not the greatest bluffing candidate on the turn for blocker-unblocker reasons, right? Because I want him to have spades that now fold, and I want to bluff the turn a lot with my ace jack off if I have low frequency king jack off with a heart, maybe even ace king with a heart, so I have lots of natural bluffs available, and then I put that into 1/3 turn and then jam river line together with my flushes. This is kind of the plan. So this is where you need to be careful, and this is kind of what happens. Again, if it goes check on the river and I'm estimating, okay, how do I want to bluff? Or like what kind of hands do I want to bluff? This is obviously a good candidate. I would probably bluff everything that doesn't have showdown value, and I don't have that much of these hands that are now mandatory bluffing hands. And what kind of sizings I want to bet. I want to target a queen. I want to target a 10 that he might fold on that river. Maybe something like 5x. Maybe something like pocket 8s, pocket 9s that peeled ones. And an ace, it's not folding to any sizing anyway. So 1/3 kind of works well here. I don't want to polarize too hard. Okay, where's the music? It's just gone. There we go. Little bit of elevator music. So yeah, I hope that made some sense. And this is especially those small sizings on the turn are basically only a thing in 3-bet pots out of position. In position, this is not happening so much. You also size down, but not to 1/3 mostly. Queen 10, multi-way plays pretty bad. I would fold these hands always. Queen 10, Jack 9, King 9 off and all that stuff. Call the suited 5-3 hands, 6-4, 6-2 hands. Plays way better multi-way. Queen 10 just garbage 3 ways, so goes into the trash. I'm just gonna make a note. Maybe I can change the color a little bit. Can I? That we at least talked about it a little bit. Folding ace 8 under the gun is good. This we talked a little bit too. Blockers, unblockers, yeah, a little bit, because they always play a role. But I think we can find some situations where we can illustrate a little bit better. Yeah, not full stacked, huge sizing under the gun. I don't really have to explain this, that we need to be careful here in 3-betting. So not even thinking about bluffing my ace 4. He basically says he has a good hand, and usually people tell the truth. at least on these stakes. Five or off, usually folding, unless it's maybe blind versus blind. And then, even then, it's pretty loose. Man, we're getting all the trash hands in a row. If I know the big line is a fish, I would just 3x here to play a bigger pot against the fish. Just because I have a good hand. Okay. Ah, yeah. Betting small here a lot. People should check raise a ton here as bluffs and for protection and all that stuff. This is also very good sizing by him. Should go small because he raises an A2. I have an easy fold, but still get to range bet this since... Okay, this is like a crazy huge 3-bet. I don't think player pool does it enough. Like if you look at that situation in a solver, it would give you something between maybe 15 to 20% check raise frequency, and maybe the player pool gets to, I don't know, half of that. So still a pretty good spot to c-bet a lot. A3 would not be opening in GTO always, small blind first in, but I think you should do it always, like any ace. There we go. $28 will be folding. Can do a tiny bit of 3-betting maybe, up to 25%. Oh yeah, my randomizer is up here. The program that this is called Eurogin with J, like jelly. And then you have like these cute little randomizers on every table, which I think is pretty convenient. King Jack is a little bit too loose to 3-bet. Queen 9 will be calling. If he goes small, I think I have to continue this hand. Not going to bet that turn. I'm just gonna go back to the 10-10 hand. Was it this table? Yeah, for 5. Easy fold. Yeah, pure calling here. Whiffed the flop. Facing a... like, if I face this sizing, or if you face it, fold an 8 right away, fold a 10 right away. He's just saying he has a good hand. Sizing probably not really a thing. So yeah. Makes life easy. Where's the fucking hand? Is it the other table? Because this was kind of a good example too. What hand did you have? We had king, queen off? We had king, queen off, right? Man, this replay. Oh, there we go. So, I bet full range on 10-10-8. Which is probably in theory not really like fist bump full range bet, but still gets very close. So in practice it will always work. So you should do that too. And then get raised with a pretty small sizing, and this is great. Why is that great? Because he's targeting hands like my trash hands, my king queen and stuff like that. He want to protect his 8-7. You want to protect his ace-8. I'm calling ace high backdoor flush draw hands. I'm calling queen jack. I'm calling jack 9. I'm calling king queen suited backdoor flush draw and all that stuff. So he gets value from worse hands, and maybe even value from worse hands that I'm not turning into a bluff later. So for example, I peel ace king. He maybe blocks the turn on the deuce. I call again. River goes check check, and he got 2 streets with his 8 or with his pocket 6s. Great success, great result for him. The only thing he needs to be careful with is that his range is depolarized. linear. That means he has a little bit of pocket sixes, he has 8x, he has open-enders, he has gut shots, but also has 10x. So it goes from super nuts all the way down to some weak pairs. So a little bit of everything. And the big mistake he might be doing, or he cannot do really, is to polarize on the turn after I call with his 10x. He cannot just go, okay, I have a 10, I'm going to overbet now and jam the river. Because what is he going to do with his 8? Right? He's not going to overbet that 8. He's putting it into his check range. And what if he puts that into his check range and then never puts a 10 in there? Right? You see the point. He is splitting ranges. He has 2 ranges. One is really, really strong and maybe has some bluffs. And the other one is always like weak. Always weak hands in there, and maybe even some give ups. So this is kind of what you don't want to have. You want to have those 2 ranges in one, so that I need to guess all the time, okay, what am I going to do with that? And he never gets into that spot where he cannot defend anymore because he doesn't have any good hands anymore. So if I face that small sizing, that's a great start. But on the turn, he should do a lot of smaller betting or medium betting and not going too polarized because he want to bet an 8 again. And if he wants to bet an 8 again, he's not going to do that with an overbet sizing, because if he goes too huge, I'm only calling 9s and better, and then he's owning himself, right? So this is how it works. Keep your ranges together. After depolarized check raising on the turn, have to keep ranges together. So use a sizing that fits all of your range. Also your weak hands, your draws, and then put your good hands in there too. This is way more beneficial than splitting ranges. Damn it! Good situation. Ka-ching! There we go. If this was kind of too complicated or you didn't get the point, feel free to ask again in the Discord. This can be complicated. If you are a course owner, this concept is explained in our course with like a 1-hour video I did with a student. So check that out if you haven't already. Damn it, so much talking. How many spots do we have? 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Okay. Gonna open raise this. This guy seems to be banana, so trying to get into a pot with him. He open raised before I got my hand. Alright, so again, if this one is a fish, maybe start thinking about calling a little bit against min raises. Don't have to. Ay, the big blind cold 4-bet when I 3-bet against under the gun. Scary. Scary. Super scary. So no jamming here, obviously. I jam into kings plus. But he still could have ace king jacks. So I think, and obviously bluffs, so I stick to calling. I think I take 2 kings more than I take 1. Quarter pot I think is fine. Good sizing by him. Suits doesn't really matter for us because he probably never has king queen suited as a bluff. Maybe tiny bit. If he has, our suits are the nut worst because we don't block any king queen. If he goes quarter again, I am calling again and then deciding on folding the river. This is 1/3. Good sizing by him. Then he has like half pot left on the river. In practice, I think you can start thinking about folding. Maybe against the player pool. But I'm not going to do it. I'm folding that river for sure. Yeah, easy fold now. Especially when he snap jams. Didn't take a second. So he wants to have hands like... He needs to find bluffs with cold 4-betting in that tight spot that now want to triple off. Super hard for him to do, so you can always fold. You have king x yourself, no need to defend anything else. But I think for the small sizing, he can still value bet jacks on the turn. So already a little bit unhappy, but no folding there. Here you could just bet quarter range on all monotone boards. People. 3x, I'm folding 9-10. Against a smaller stack. We talked about this. Wanna have high card hands. Also price pretty bad. What was I about to say? Can't really remember. I'm gonna size down here and cheat a little bit because I have Jack 9 off and he is probably folding inelastic anyway. Here, gonna go 12 against 2.5 out of the big blind. So yeah, this heavily goes, like the queen heavily goes into underbluffed spots. Like probably he wants to have some ace queen with good blockers, with good suits. He's not full stacked, so I'm gonna do this again and just cheat. People hitting the snap fold button in their clients, so you can just save that half big blind if you have a stealing hand anyway. Can just size down. These are all the small things, right? Small exploits, small things that makes everything a little bit better, and they will all add up. Hopefully. Yeah, yeah. Small blind versus big blind single raise pots, monotone boards. I'm not supposed to bet here, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because I think it's pretty good in practice. But this is nowhere near a hand that I should be betting here, because again, we learned small blind versus big blind. The big mistake, in theory, you can make is betting those super air hands too often on the flop. But if we think like player pool is not defending accordingly and only defending something if they have something, then it gets better and better and better, obviously, where to the point where I don't mind range betting these kind of spots. But in theory, man, I don't know why I 3x'd. I should size down here. A little bit of 4-bet bluffing, 25%, I think. I mean, it's not really 4-bet bluffing. Obviously, we're folding to a jam, but we also have him dominated if he calls, right? So he calls his queen x, his ace x hands to a 4-bet in the small blind. Those hands are raising a little bit. Not on the 35, though. Range betting this seems fine. I'm going to peer 1 with my best ace high. And I'm going to step here to protect my 3. Now try to get it to showdown. And do not get the opportunity. Yeah, hard for him to have natural bluffs here. Except for like some ace 3, 8, 9, 9, 10 type of stuff. I should do a lot of block betting here, but I think ace queen is just having enough showdown. No range betting here on 10-8-6. Pretty good board for the big blind. So yeah. Yeah, this should be an easy value bet on the river. So this looks like, yeah, maybe should I bluff my my ace queen on the river, stuff like that. But he should have value bet, like always. Like blocking the river, even though there's a 4-card straight, yes, it's not that scary. I basically never have a 6 in my range if I'm not blocking the turn. So this is way too tight. And if he lets us see the river more frequently with those hands, and we are not forced into bluff catching or into calling the river with worse hands, and he doesn't gives us the opportunity, then we can't really lose. So, fine spot. But this is also something that goes into player pool. People are not value betting thin enough, right? Which is good, obviously. Oh, we had shorter stacks, right? Okay, I will keep it in mind, but we talked a little bit about it. Okay, we're gonna play our aces, and then we will wrap up part 1. That's good. I saw some students lately that they are flat calling here. I would never do that. Aces always go into the 4-bet. You can call some 4-bets with it, but never 3-bets. So just pick a sizing that makes sense, and then try to get it in. Tank is good. Tank is no snap fold. Tank is no weak hand. Let's go, Mr. BTS. Tank fold? What kind of hand is tank folding there? Like either you have a 4-bet call or you have a 4-bet fold, right? Anyway, Okay, so this was a lot of content, I think, for one video, and a lot of talking. The rest of it, how to find your perfect bet sizes, in part 2. See you guys there.